I got some live. How you guys doing? So I just wanted to do some bed rant. Got some ideas and stuff I'm going to tell you about and stuff. First of all, um, Donald Trump texts me, and he just texted me again and invited me to download the White House app, and I did. And I want to, Donald, if somehow you're watching, I want to thank you for taking your time to text me. I really appreciate it. I don't take it lightly, and I really appreciate it. Appreciate your taking your time. Donald, actually, Donald, thank you for texting me happy birthday on my birthday, December 6th, which you got the day right. You spelled my name right. You spelled it Jimmie. That's how I spell it. And you said, "You rock. Happy birthday, Jimmie." And I really appreciate that, Donald. Okay. So there's that. And I did download the White House app. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to, integrate it into my experience, and I'll give you feedback as I see, as I go, Donald. Okay. There's a lot to that app. There's a lot of stuff there. There's like different, it's like a channel, you have this, you have this, you have this, you have this, you have this. You can see this, you can see lives, you can see photos, and it's a lot to go through, but I'll work on it as I go. And another thing that came to me, a thought just came to me, like today on my walk. Gosh, if it wasn't for my walks, I probably wouldn't even think. I thought about it, and I thought, why don't I just start writing music, like on paper? I found this manuscript paper. It's actually 5 lines. It's like staff paper. It's not guitar tab. It's like staff paper. It's like really writing music, notes. And I thought, well, maybe I should learn to do that and do it once in a while, maybe 15 minutes a day. Write a few notes out, and maybe even snapshot it and publish it on YouTube. You see that my beginner compositional musical literacy era, and I called the moderator, and he said it's a good idea too. In fact, he's recommended it before. I just wasn't ready or didn't like the idea at the time. But no, I might do that. Just start with something simple. I do know what notes are. And I do have some sense of putting one note after another, and I do know how to write. I do know how the tablature is structured. Why not spend a few minutes a day just getting musically literate? The funny thing, this is a funny anecdote, as I have got a very good memory. I was in Santa Monica in 1997 or 1998. I hung out the mid to late 90s. I spent in Santa Monica. I loved that. Just loved hanging out with all the rich people, and there's the Pacific Palisades, and there's Brentwood, and there's O.J. Simpson's house right down where near where I would hang out. I turned down a chance to play basketball with Woody Harrelson. I saw him playing basketball at the 7th Lincoln Park on 7th and Lincoln, if my memory serves, about the park address. But anyway, my friend Booker, I was going to get in a band with, knew Woody, and he said, "You want to play basketball with Woody?" I said, "Nah, I'm all right. I'm good. Just watched him play a little bit. I'm not a big basketball fan, and I'm just, yeah." And Booger said, "Yeah, you're right. He's just an actor." So anyway, there's that. Yeah. What was I saying about 1997 though? I was saying something about hanging out in Santa Monica. So I lost my train of thought there. What was I talking about that? Oh yeah, I was talking about an anecdote. See, I just have to search for the file in my brain. It's like there. I just have to access it. I was studying it with Seventh-day Adventists at the time, and I would go to Santa Monica Seventh-day Adventist Church. And see if I remember the name of the preacher. Oh God, what was his name, dude? What was his name? He was like, oh gosh, Ewell Atchley, Yeul, or something to that effect. Atchley, ATChley, Ewell Atchley. That just I have that in my brain from like 35 or how many years ago that was. He was cool. He was older, but he was healthy. He gave me the idea, partly, to do, when I stay healthy. because these Seventh Day Adventists, they don't eat a lot of crap, and they exercise, and they take care of their bodies too, you know. And he said, so how many people out there know how to read music? And out of shame, I lied and raised my hand. He says, I didn't mean the words, people. I mean, by saying you read music, don't just say you can read the words. And I hate to say it, but I lied, and as if I could read music. And then he said, I didn't mean the words, people. So that's a funny anecdote. Well, maybe I should live up to that claim I made in 1997 or 8, when I lied in front of everybody by raising my hand that I could read music when I couldn't, and learn it now. You know, maybe I'll become a sight reader. Not the best, of course, because there's always somebody better at everything and anything. But just start writing a few notes down. I'm very visual, you know, in my nature, more than I'm oral. I'm more visual than oral, actually. In fact, I'm just now learning to hear the lyrics of a song and go with that, rather than having to Google them so I can read them physically with my eyes and then learn them that way. Lately, I haven't done that. I didn't Google the words to Frank Zappa, Dumb All Over, and I didn't Google the words to Middleman by Living Color, and that's a huge thing for me. My ideas are mine alone. You know, I didn't have to Google that and read it. I just heard it and memorized it by my hearing this time. And that's progress for me. It's progress. So maybe by connecting to the visual element of music, which is actually writing the notes, it'll somehow put something together for me. Plus, I have this. Why do I have this if for no reason, right? Everything happens for a reason to me. And I have this sitting there on my computer, so I might as well use it. Write some notes down. And if I like it, I might snapshot it and post it on my YouTube. So there's that. And then I want to do a slight music lesson. Okay, can we do that? It came to me to say this. Okay, so get your thinking hats on, or whatever metaphor for thinking there is. And I got this. I got the paper, Birkin's music. Thank you guys. You guys rock. I bought it a while back. Okay, let's talk about theory of triads. Start with a major triad. Okay. Just take any major triad. It came to me to say this. Did you know that there's no two major triads that have exactly two notes in common? Think about that. Major triads either have all three notes in common, which means they're the same triad, or they have no notes in common, which means if you play them both, you get 6 notes. Or they have one note in common, which means if you play the two, you get 5 notes. There's only, unless you play the same triad, you can only do either no notes in common or one note in common with triads. Think about it, and it just is. So I thought about analyzing the intervals of the interval spaces of two triads, and decide which ones have no notes in common and which notes have one note in common, and just think about that for a second. You want to do that? Or should I get my guitar out? Would that be a good idea? All right, why not? I'll be right back. I promise. I'll be right back. Get my guitar. Okay, this is my black electric guitar. I didn't. It's not important that much to have the guitar, but it might help some. So let's do it. So you have triads, right? So let's start with the C major triad. Hear that over the ringing of this asshole calling me with a restricted number, which I'm not going to answer. C major. Okay. Now the first interval is half step. You can go up or down, and there's no notes in common. So if I go from C major to C sharp major, no notes in common. Or if I go from C major to B major, no notes in common. So the half step up or half step down that makes 2 intervals. that have no notes in common for if you play the two major triads on that interval apart. So far, half step up, no notes in common. Half step down, no notes in common. Because there's no notes in common between a C sharp major and a triad and a C major triad, and there's no notes in common between a C major triad and a B major triad. Okay, that's 2 out of the 11 intervals. Did you know there's only 11 intervals in music, not 12? So the next interval is whole step. So let's do a C major triad. If I go up a whole step to D major triad, there's no notes in common. That's an interval of up a major second. And then if I go down second, that would be going down to B flat major triad. No, there's no notes in common. So the whole step up or whole step down, that's 2 more intervals between triads that have no notes in common. That's 4 out of the 11 intervals so far. The fifth one that has no intervals in common is the tritone. So if I start with C major triad and I go down to F sharp major triad, or up to F major triad, depending on how you look at it. In this case, I'm going down kind of literally. F sharp major triad, no notes in common. So between two triads or a whole tone, a tritone apart, there's no notes in common. You get 6 notes if you play a tritone. If you play a C major triad and an F sharp major triad, you get 6 different notes because there's no notes in common. So the tritone interval between major triads, no notes in common. That's the 5th interval that has no notes in common between triads. Go up a half step, no notes in common. Down a half step, no notes in common. Up a whole step, no notes in common. Down a whole step, no notes in common. Up or down a tritone, no notes in common. So that's 5 of the 11 intervals that have no notes in common if you do triads at that interval, major triads. It matters the same thing, but I'm doing major here. So that leaves 6 more intervals that have 1 note in common. Play triad, major triads in that intervals, and those are the minor third, the major third, and the perfect fourth. Or you can look at it as the perfect fifth, the minor sixth, and the major sixth. Those are the inversions of the minor third, major third, and perfect fourth. They all those 6 have 1 note in common, and they're related to the minor third. There's 2 each of minor third. There's going up and going down. So, and both those have 1 note in common. So start with C major triad. If I go up to E flat major triad, there's 1 note in common. Check it out. If I start with C major triad and I go down to A major triad, there's also 1 note in common. So up or down a minor third with triad intervals apart at that interval gives you 1 note in common. So far that's 2 out of the 6 intervals that have 1 note in common with triad intervals. The next interval I'm going to do is major third. If I go C major triad to E major triad, that's up a major third. There's also 1 note in common. That's cool. Or if I go C major triad and go down to A flat major triad, there's also 1 note in common with each of those. So 2 triads apart, up by 1 going up a major third is 1 note in common. 2 triads apart, 1 going down a major third is also 1 note in common. That's 4 out of the 6 intervals that have 1 note in common between major triad intervals. Now the next one is perfect fourth. So if I do C major triad, if I go up to F, that's 1 note in common. There just is, check it out. Or if I go from C major triad to go down to G major triad, that's down a fourth, there's also 1 note in common. So up a fourth with intervals, triads, up a fourth apart, or it's 1 note in common, and 2 triads separated, 1 going down, up a fourth. The other one is also 1 note in common. That makes the 6 intervals that have 1 note in common with triads, changing, going to 2 major triads apart by that interval. And that's useful to know in music. It's just good to know that. You can do some, if you don't want to have any notes in common, go up a minor second, or down a minor second, up a major second, down a major second, or whole tone, half tone, if you want to call it that, or up or down a tritone. If you want one note in common, go up a minor third or down a minor third, up a major third or down a major third, up a perfect fourth or down a perfect fourth. And I'm not going to go on. You can't hear me playing anyway, so I'm not going to just start giving examples. Plus, that's now playing, and I'm really trying to play this. I'm trying to teach it. But it's interesting that there's 3 notes in a triad, right? 3 notes in a major triad, and 2 of the options that have two of the options of minor third will have one of those three triad notes in common with it. The other 2 options, up a major third and down a major third, will have one of the other notes in the C major triad as a common note. And then the other option, which is up a perfect fourth or down a perfect fourth, will have the last or third note of the C major triad in common. So there's 3 notes in a major triad. If you pick one of them, there's 2 possibilities: up a minor third or down a minor third, or that have that note in common. If you pick the next note, there's 2 possibilities: up a major third or down a major, two interval possibilities of the 6 that will have that note in common. And of the third note in the C major triad, let's say that would be G, there's 2 options of the 6 possible options that have one note in common that will have that note in common. So that's good to know. Like if I start with C major, there's 2 triads. There's 2 major triads that will have C in them also. And if I start with C major, there's 2 triads that will have E in there in them also. And there's two major triads that will have a G in there also. That's 6. 3 times 2 or 2 times 3 is 6, and that's the 6 intervals of from the start that will give you one note in common of a major triad. And then all the other 5, which is up a half step or down a half step, or up a whole step or down a whole step, or up or down a tritone, have no notes in common. It's really good to know that. It's good to know that kind of information as you're playing. If you're doing like Eddie Van Halen like licks, just improvising it, like I do a lot. I do a lot of improvising Eddie Van Halen licks. And it's good to know that, like he does interruption. He does a lot of that. One note in common stuff. If it's blatantly, it's right there, So I think that's cool to know. And yeah, I'm just tapping here, just for fun here. You can go C major like this, and then you can go to G sharp major. Those 2 triads both have C in them. That's one note in common, which is a C note. Yep. Or I can go from C major, I can go to G major, and it has a G note in it. Both those 2 triads have a G note in it. That's the G notes in common there, right? Or if I can go I can start with C major, and I can go up to A major, and that has an E note in common with the C major triad. Isn't that interesting? So C major to G sharp major both have C in it. C major to G major both have G in them, and C major to A major both have E in them. And that is taking triads that are either a fifth above, which the G is, or a major a minor sixth above, which the G sharp major triad is, or the A major triad, which is up a major sixth above the C major, which makes it the inversion of the minor, which is actually the inversion of the minor third, because it's also the same as if you went down to a major down a minor third from C, and also the G sharp major is the same as if I went down a major third, from C to G sharp, and the G major is the same as if I went down perfect fourth to G major. So because of the interval symmetry between perfect fifth, perfect fourth, minor sixth, major third, major sixth, minor third. So that's interesting, I think. And then there's the three other possibilities with the C major triad. There's three other. There would be. You want me to do them while I'm here? Why not? Why? Let's go for it. You could go. Let's see. If I start with C major, watch this. I can go up a major third to E major. Light just went off in my head. E major, and that has both those two triads have an E note in them. So if I start with C major and go to E major, those two triads both have an E in them, and that's up a major third from the E major is up a major third from the C major triad. Or if I take the C major triad and I go up to I'm going to go up to F major triad. I like that sound. So C major triad to F major triad, that's up a perfect fourth. Both have a C note in them. So C major and F major both have a C in them. Only one choice left. Here we go. C major. And if I go down to let's do this right here. If I go down to, come on, Jimmie, you can do this. Go down to E flat major. That's brilliant. So C major, go down to E, go up to E flat major. That's up a minor third. And both those two triads have a G in them. See that? So C major, then down up to E flat major, both have a G note. A G as in goat, and a C major up to an E major triad, both have an E in them. There's that, and a C major triad up to an F major triad, both have a C in them. So there you have it. You have the fact that you have the two intervals. If you go up about a third or down about a third with major triads, you have one note in common. If you go up a major third or down a major third with major triads, you have one note in common. And if you go up a perfect fourth or down a perfect fourth with major triads, you have one note in common. And since that's six choices, up one a third, down one a third, that's two. Up a major third, down a major third, that's two more. Up a perfect fourth, down a perfect fourth, that's two more. There's six interval distances between triads that will have one note in common. And of those six, two of the notes in common will be one of the notes in the original triad. Another two of the six choices will have another note of the original triad in common, and the last two of those two choices will have the third note of the original triad in common. So it's like you have C, E, G, and then you have two triads that will have a C in common, two triads that will have an E in common, and two triads that will have a G in common. And those two triads, and that makes six intervals that have one note in common, and those intervals are essentially up a minor third or down a minor third, up a major third or down a major third, and up a perfect fourth, which makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 choices. So now that makes all 11 intervals, because there's 6 intervals that have one note in common, the other 5 that don't have any notes in common, which is up a minor third. I mean, up a half step or down a half step, up a whole step or down a half step, or up or down a tritone make 5, and 6 and 5 make 11, and the total number of intervals in music. There's only 11 intervals. You don't have the octave is not an interval. Neither is the unison, because there's only one note involved. So the only intervals are minor second, major third, major third, perfect fourth, tritone, perfect fifth, minor sixth, major sixth, minor seventh, and major seventh. That's 11 intervals. Let me guess, piece of rock and roll.